All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. My guests are still with me, Elizabeth Waduti, Lead Coordinator, Africa Youth Climate Assembly, Frederick Okinda, Founder and CEO, Comb Green Solutions, and Father Stephen Makagutu, the Assistant to the Permanent Rep of the Vatican to UNEP. Let's see what you're saying online at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. Let's bring that up on screen and see what you're saying in terms of the conversation that we're having right here on Monday Report. Sir Nixon says with proper guidance, the youth can play a big role in making sure their homes, schools and youth organizations are more environmentally friendly by adopting environmentally friendly practices, recycling of different materials, as well as preserving resources, production offering a refreshing departure from the ordinary stories we are accustomed to. If I was a reporter there, I will be very, very worried. Okay? Engineer Victor, it says, as Kenya hosts Africa Climate Summit, I believe that's what you wanted to say, I'd be waiting to hear from President Ruto on the plans he has to decommission the thermal power plants generating millions of carbon. Carbon emission is the biggest single most contributor to climate change. Okay? Ed Chris says the youth can empower local resource users to protect, sustainably manage and restore natural climate solutions like mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds and soils that reduce people's vulnerability to climate change impact. Okay? Maimuna Said says social media has been a great platform used by young generation. Use it to showcase the beauty of participating in climate action campaign. Edambo Sami says climate change is a threat multiplier. We must be mindful of our actions around the world. Unknowingly, we cause immense damage to environment we rely on for our well-being. Pragmatic responses, pragmatic, I believe that's what you wanted to say, pragmatic responses and greater agility are needed to respond to our fast-changing world. Engineer Nazaro says authorities should involve youth in all aspects. The future of the world belongs to them. Energetic youths should lead in tree planting to reduce pollution and emission of gases. Gashui Munywa, with advice from civil engineers, what would be the effect on our tree cover if all the land owners could plant trees along our entire road network? Okay? Governor 254 says climate change is real. It is happening right now. It is the most urgent threat facing our entire species, and we need to work collectively together and stop procrastinating. We don't have time to sit on our hands as our planet burns. For young people, climate change is bigger than election or re-election. It's life or death. Okay? Fred, there's an initiative now of planting 15 billion trees by the government.
Yeah.
How would this work in your view, having dealt with such issues before? What is the best way of dealing with it? Just so that the government can stand advised by you.
Okay, the best, on my side, the best way to deal with this is to the most important people in doing this is the youths. Okay. And right now, let's say the youths doing the environmental conservation are very organized. And as you can see, there's another initiative, the Green Army, through the YED. It's bringing so many youth together. And also in Korogocho and let's say in Korogocho, Kibera, Dandora, there's also an organization called PSN, which also brings the youth together to do the transformation of the neglected green spaces along the riparian, or let's say the Nairobi River. So what we want to be, the youth's voices to be heard and being involved in these activities. Because they're the one who were always doing these activities. And we thank our mother, Nature Wangari Maathai. She's the one who is always inspired the youth to plant more trees. So you can see when the Michuki Park was being transformed, we were very much we participate a lot on reclamation of the Michuki Park. And you see, when we do it at Michuki Park, we replicate in Korogocho. So between Korogocho and Michuki Park, there are so many youths who are willing to do this. But let's say they are not passionate about the environment, but they need to be educated and being involved in these activities, because we are the leaders of today, not tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, and,
so in your view, they should have designated planting zones, which people now come and just plant and then take care of them, like what you did at the Michuki Park.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many trees you planted there? They were in hundreds.
At Michuki Park, we planted so many trees.
Yeah.
Like, let's say 500 trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, apart from Michuki Park, in different parts of Nairobi, there's also so many youths who are doing this along the river, riparian, on the roadsides. But I hope one time or one day, government will see the efforts of the youths who are helping to fight the climate change.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Father, I know you said that climate change is not all about just planting trees, but how can we then coordinate these efforts in such a way that it is something tangible, like what the government is now doing for 15 billion trees? This is a target that we all know. This is now a target. Now, if I plant 100, I know I've done 100 out of the 15 billion trees. How should this be structured for it to materialize? Because you mentioned something interesting in terms of like planting trees over 10,000 and then the next day they dry up. Yeah. How can this be made to come to fruition?
For me, I think in two ways, individually and cooperatively. Yeah. Individually, as I talked about our birthdays and the rest, so that we have family forest just in your farm. But cooperatively, as Fred has said, the youth groups that exist, then the faith-based organizations and the community-based organizations, because this is not something that has started now. The other day, you find Catholic dioceses in Muranga, in Meru, even Diocese of Kericho now have Environmental Day, where they go to some place, a designated farm for the diocese, and they plant trees. And therefore, something is going on. So what we need is the resources, and also that we also do it individually as a person, and also as a group. And as a group, we, like, for example, we have seen some organizations supporting the planting of trees, giving out seedlings. So we need to, when we do that, for example, in 2020, we have a group called Laudato Si Sacco. We went to Kakamega Forest to plant trees. So what they do in Kakamega Forest, the government has given some part to the community. So you plant trees and you grow crops. As the trees grow, when they overgrow the crops, you move out, you continue moving out. So that these people, when they go to weed their crops, they weed the trees. And so every day, they continue to reclaim back the forest, and they come out of the forest. Because you just tell them to plant trees, they won't care about it. But because it also gives them food, it will take maybe 10 years for the trees to grow to a moment that they can't grow maize anymore, and they come out of it. And when we went there, we bought for them a water pump, which they use to water the crops and also to water the trees. And not only doing that, just leaving them there. We do a follow-up. And therefore, when the government, when the organizations that give out seedlings, there must be a follow-up that we gave out 10,000. Some dry naturally, but out 10,000, at least 5,000 have been able to grow. And we also see that we also try during the rainy seasons to plant them so that by the time the rain is over, they already started growing on themselves and doing that. And therefore, as you ask me about how we are going to achieve it, there are those who have been doing it. We incorporate them, the likes of Fred, Liz, and even the church, and even the mosques. And after doing that, then the government, because it's not a you want to show off that I can do it. Because you need these people. The government is the people in that country. And therefore, each individual has a role to play, that the trees have been planted, you as a person, but even cooperatively. There's also adopting. You can adopt a tree, you can adopt some part of the forest that you saw there's somebody some time back who used to go and give water to animals in the national park out of his own choice. The same way, I can see a tree dying, but then it's maybe a fruit tree, and I don't do anything. But when it dries, I'll be complaining, don't have money to buy fruits. Yet the tree just next to your house dried when you're watching. And therefore, it must be both individually and also cooperatively, that is bringing the church-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and the government, like the Ministry of Forestry and all that.
Yeah, and Liz, this is a very ambitious plan. In your view, how can it be a success? What needs to be put in place now?
Yeah, I think in a huge way, and in addition to what Fred and Father Stephen have mentioned, it's a lot more on how we can be able to even educate and encourage the citizens to engage in the exercise, but in a way that also benefits them in a huge way. Because a lot of times people want to buy into something they can actually see.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things and the narratives that has been there is how can we encourage people to plant trees that have a value? For instance, I have seen children, school children really very happy about enjoying fruits from trees they've grown themselves. And right now, there's a lot of that component. How can we make sure that even with our children in schools, the institutions, that we cultivate a culture of encouraging people to also grow trees that can actually help them directly. And I think when you ask me about trees, this directly reminds me about the initiative that I'm running on a Green Generation Initiative. That's a tree growing initiative as well. And I think one of the things we've really been able to cultivate is around a campaign that we dubbed Adopt a Tree campaign, to make sure that with the institutions, that children in these schools are able to plant and adopt a tree each in their own school compound, but not just any tree, but fruit trees. So it was actually a component that enables the children to see a tiny seedling grow into a mature tree that produces fruit that can be able to supplement what it is that they're feeding in school. And I think that component is really important. And the other component is how can we also ensure that the trees that are being planted, of course, are trees that are produced from somewhere. And one of the culture that I have always cultivated in myself is to make sure that anytime I need seedlings, I will always get these seedlings from the CBOs, from community-based organizations that have put themselves together, organized themselves, and found a way of establishing tree nurseries to be able to generate an income. And I think if we are able to encourage our young people in that way, then in a huge way, a lot more people will begin to get in the space. A lot more people will realize that this is actually benefiting the environment, benefiting the people, and helping us get something in terms of social economic benefits at the same time. I think tying it up that way, then it allows for the component of how are we incentivizing people to also feel encouraged to participate in the process. And I think what better way to incentivize than to allow the process to be in a way that even the production of the same and the people that are actually producing these seedlings are community people, like people, young people at the grassroots, people that are actually already definitely in a huge way going to benefit from participating in the process.
Yeah.
So I see it as a more of combining all these components together to also ensure there is sustainability, both in terms of the trees that are being grown, but also sustainability in terms of how we keep that culture in people to continue in the tree growing culture. Yeah. Regardless of how long it's going to take us, so that people can continuously have that as a culture. That I know that, like Father has mentioned, if I have a birthday, then I know that I have to plant trees for my birthday because it's my responsibility, and because if not me, my generations are going to get the benefits, but also there is that component of how this benefits all of us.
Yeah. From the numerous trips that you've had across the world, which initiative stands out in your mind that you think we can borrow from here? Or which culture have you seen anywhere in the world where you've been that you think is something we can bring in here and will work for us?
Yeah. I think a huge component of what I've been able to see, it's a lot more still coming back to the African continent. Yeah. A lot more on how the young people have been able to come together and have been able to drive solutions on the ground themselves. And I think I don't even want to go really far. I just want to bring back the component of this assembly that we are putting together, because I think for me this has been a powerful component of seeing how young people can come together, organize themselves, mobilize other people to come together and understand that we need to unify and speak in one voice, and then being able to, in a way, find their way and have the seat at the table to actually push that conversation forward through the Africa Climate Summit. And I think for me, since February, having worked with the team that is actually behind the Africa Youth Climate Assembly, and I'm mentioning this also because I know they're also listening, is the power of young people to believe and understand that we don't always have to be invited to the table, but we can, in a huge way, create our own opportunities, push the needle forward, break all the barriers, and begin to create something really powerful that can help young people to also, be catalysts of change. And I think one huge thing that enables this is that once this assembly as well, even in the future, it allows us to have that systemic embedment. It allows us to, in a way, break that component of young people only being invited to sessions that they've not been involved in the creation of. Because now they have the opportunity to create these themselves. They have the opportunity to showcase the solutions. And then what that means is that with that opportunity, then you also have an opportunity to draw resources to ourselves as young people to enable us to continue doing the work that we are doing. And I think the benefit of this is that it also creates a platform that enables all of the young people to plug in. Because even right now, as we speak, on Wednesday, the assembly team will be in different parts of the country, for instance, in Kwale, in Nairobi, in Isiolo, in Kisumu, all these places to be able to reach young people at the grassroots so that their voices can be heard at the summit as well. Yeah. And of course, the wings are spreading across the continent. The team last week was in Ethiopia to be able to engage a lot more young people across the continent. And I think this in itself, and even seeing young people raise their own resources to get to a forum like in Addis to engage young people, it's a component that I think would be a really groundbreaking opportunity for the African continent to platform the young people and to give the young people an opportunity that enables them to continue thriving in the same way, but in a huge way that allows us to speak in one voice and in a huge way that allows us to continue to engage in the process as, stakeholders in the same way.
Yeah. And Fred, how do you involve younger people into this conversation? Because there are some of them who are still out there in lives of crime, like you, the ones you have rehabilitated and the different ones. Yeah. What would be your message to them so that they join initiatives like yours? Because one of the biggest questions that everybody will ask is, what's in it for me? Mbona nikuje kwa hiyo function yako, kwa nini ni kujoin? Why is it important?
Yeah. So most important message I can just tell the youths, we need to take good advantage of our ages, because as you can see, we are going older right now. But what can you do for the future upcoming children? Yeah. So we need to take these initiatives on our own, because when we were starting, people were thinking that we were playing, you see. But we have a vision, so we can change the narrative of how people can see you, you see. Because somebody can see you, and what you will be thinking, this is a criminal. But they give us a second chance. So right now, I want to tell the youths, please don't sit down to look for someone's property. Take advantage of your age and take action and be the change in your community. Because as ComGreen and other youths in parts of the informal settlement, if we didn't take that advantage and ask God to give us more power, because it was not easy, removing someone from the crime, he will be asking you, what will I eat? What will you give me at the end of the day? Yeah. But for those who accepted our wish to come so we can do these activities together, right now they are seeing some lights at the end of the tunnel. Because hapo mbele kuna mazuri.
Kuna mazuri.
Yeah.
Mazuri, that's a main question. So inakuanga aje, unawalipa ama ni hizo tu awards? What happens?
Also right now, as we doing these activities, so we need to look for sustainability projects in our groups. Yeah. As for right now, we have an organization, Public Space Network. They have been with us since 2019. And they are always participating on awarding the best groups who have transformed their green spaces, neglected green spaces. So as ComGreen, we won the 2019 edition, Changing Faces program. And 2021, we won again the best Nairobi River group, the Nairobi River cleanup group. And so many youths have been seeing the awards which have been given to Comp Green.
Yeah.
So they want to replicate what the Comp Green is doing.
Okay.
So right now, I hope even there's an organization called Muungano wa Vijiji, SDI.
Yes.
They are bringing so many youth in informal settlements, even in Naikuru. They are bringing them together so they can just start these little initiatives to curb the climate.
So walk me through a normal day for you. Nini ufanyika first? Mnakutana mahali alafu ndio mnaenda kuclean Nairobi River ama mnasikizana Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday tuko Nairobi River? How does the plan look like?
So as Comp Green, we have our schedule. From Monday is our meeting day. Every Monday we always come and meet together so we can discuss other things which we can do. On Wednesday, we do the river cleanup, and Saturday. But the cleaning of Nairobi River, it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Because first, although government needs to bring the resources to the ground, so the communities must be educated on how to handle their waste from their households. Because so many waste... Yeah. So many wastes which are being directed directly into the river are coming from our households. Because you see, at night, people collect their waste.
Yeah.
When we are not there, they are dumping them directly into the river. So the community are the most important thing before the cleanup. Because today we will clean this space, and the upstream.
They're dumping there.
They are dumping there. Okay. So today we are cleaning, tomorrow it's the same. So first, when the community need to be sensitized on how to handle their waste. And so far, I can just say, want to thank Chemolex, a company in Kariobangi. We have been collaborating with them. The waste which we are removing from the river, we are taking them to their facility, and we make the pavement blocks, cabros. And the same cabros, we do the beautification along the Nairobi River. So as the youth to get something to eat and to be sustainability, we need some things like, let's say, like those bigger machines. So the waste we are removing, the garbage we are collecting, after sorting, what are we going to do with it? We are going to sell them on cheaper prices. But if you can get those, the youth groups, if they can get those machines, they can just start their own little companies there. And the youths, you will never hear someone robbing anybody.
Brilliant ideas then. Father, we're running out of time here, but what is the one central message you'd like someone to hear from you tonight as a closing remark?
And I'll pick it as a quote. And if you allow me, I'll read it. It says, young people demand change. They wonder how anyone can claim to be building a better future without thinking of the environmental crisis and the sufferings of the excluded. And I think that is the reason why we are having the Youth Climate Assembly and also the African Climate Summit, because these youths have realized that they're being taken for granted. And therefore, all of us are listening, and all of us here, we must put the youth into perspective every time we make the policies, because it is the youths who will bring them to fruition.
Liz, closing remarks?
Yeah, I would say environmental conservation and taking charge of the future of our environment, the future of our planet, and climate issues is everyone's responsibility. And it's going to take collective responsibility for everybody to ask themselves, what is my contribution towards making sure that people have food, people have water, that our rivers are flowing? What is my contribution as a Kenyan, for example, to make sure that I am part and parcel of the generation that did everything within their power to make sure that the environment is clean, green, healthy, and to make sure that we are not anymore really suffering from the impacts of climate change, but we've been able to build our resilience and created opportunities for our young people, for our children to be able to thrive in the space. I think for me, collective responsibility is the word that I leave everybody with, to make sure that each and every person has got their one contribution that they are making to make sure that they are protecting the environment for ourselves and also for our future generations and the children.
Yeah. As the Africa Climate Summit comes to Nairobi, what would you like to achieve? What is your picture of success?
One of the biggest check of success, it's purely around the African Youth Climate Assembly.
Yeah.
And one of the key things that we want to achieve out of this is to make sure that the assembly in itself is also systematically embedded in a way that young people with solutions on the ground can be able to, in a long-term and sustainable way, be able to also get resources to scale up their initiatives. But I think that can only be able to exist in a manner when young people are already in the frameworks that exist in climate and decision-making opportunities. And I think right now one of the biggest tasks we've been tasked to do is to actually submit an African Youth Climate Declaration to the heads of states at the Africa Climate Summit. And that is one of the key things that we are pushing for, systemic embedment. And systemic embedment in simpler terms is how can we make sure that young people are part and parcel of the conversations, that are part and parcel of decision-making. They are part and parcel and recognized as actually entities that can be able to participate in the process rather than only being invited into forums. And also to be able to ensure that a lot of the young people that we're bringing to the assembly also have access to opportunities, access to networks, and even access to, in a huge way, resources that can be able to propel them to greater heights. Because one of the components of the assembly is actually an innovation challenge that will ensure that some of the youths that will be participating can be able to actually get also grant support to scale up the initiatives. And we're looking at bringing over 400 young people in person to Nairobi across the entire African continent and across different counties in Kenya to be able to participate in person. And I think for us, being able to unify and amplify our voices, showcase our solutions, and be able to also attract resources that can support our young people to propel their innovations to greater heights is one of the most important things.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for making time this evening. Elizabeth Waduti, Lead Coordinator, Africa Youth Climate Assembly. Frederick Okinda, Founder and CEO, Comp Green Solutions. And Father Stephen Makagutu, Assistant to the Permanent Rep of Vatican to the UNEP. And most important, this is something that affects all of us out there. So ensure you can do your own little initiative to counter climate crisis. It's no longer just climate change anymore. That's where we leave it for now. My name is Trevor Mbija. On behalf of the entire team that made this possible, we say good night and God bless.